Omakase, a writing advice and inspiration podcast. By me, Max, also known as M. Karen. Hi there, and welcome to the very first episode of 2019. It is likely you're listening to this in your favorite podcast app of choice. But if you would like to check out the podcast on YouTube, I recommend you do so because for the new year, I wanted to make new assets for the show, and I really like the way that it looks. Welcome to the brand new Omakase. With everything that you love, nothing's really gone away. This podcast, of course, if you're unfamiliar with it, goes a little bit like this. It's broken into 3 segments. My week, where I talk about my creative process, what I've been working on, what I've been doing, what books I've been reading. Hint, hint, for my 2019 goal. The second segment is viewer questions. I tackle 2 questions that I receive. I take them from Twitter, from YouTube, from my email, and I tackle 2 of them. Today we'll be covering mostly questions pertaining to the new year. A brand new year full of possibilities lies ahead. How can we make the most of it? The third segment, of course, as always, it's back, it's here, the prompt. A weird, bizarre, strange writing exercise. Today is the weirdest it's ever been. This is the idea for a novel that I wrote a bit of about a year, maybe 2 years ago. It was around this time of year, I remember. I ain't got time to write it. That's just the honest truth. So I figured instead of letting that poor little story idea suffer in darkness, I would give it to you. Actually, I prefer suffering in blankness, for those pages need words. And honestly, I would rather give it to you. A fun question, a fun scenario. You will learn about the room at the end of the world on the third segment of the show. Before we get started, I just want to give you 2 bits of housekeeping. The song that you hear in the beginning and at the end of the show is Dream of Green by the OC Jazz Collective. And if you're interested in supporting me, the description of this video or podcast contains links to the 2 places you can support me. Patreon.com/mkaren and Ko-fi.com/mkaren. If Patreon is not your cup of tea, how about treating me to a cup of coffee instead? That is ko-fi.com/mkaren. Alright, enough preamble. Let us begin with my week. And I really... the seriousness is wearing off. It's time for the real Max to step in. If I sound a little different, if I sound differently in a good way, it's because I did stuff to the audio. If I sound differently in a bad way, it's because I'm a little sick. Not as sick as I was a little bit ago. That may or may not have been related to my lovely spouse and I just running in the rain. I make it sound like we were living some sort of romance story. I mean, I guess we are, but it was mostly because she wanted to go across the street from the mall to go check out the local little pet store. And, you know, it's pouring rain. It's pouring rain. We have an umbrella that's just enough for the 2 of us. And, you know, I figured, you know what? This is what's going to happen today. We're just going to run in the rain. Run into traffic. That's not true. Don't do that, kids. Also, don't run in the rain. We were not running. We were walking. Hence why we were just drenched at the end of that experience. So how has 2019 been treating you so far? I've been, I don't want to say struggling. Not because, you know, I'm cool or anything, or too good to struggle. But I've been slowly getting back into the rhythm. I want to first and foremost thank you guys for your patience on the new episodes coming out. Honestly, taking that break was so good for me. It gave me the time and space to not only make the new assets, but also to just slow down. I have been known to be a bit of a radical sometimes, and we humans are really silly. We love the numbers, we love big numbers, we love the numbers to stay the same. So I didn't want to skip a week on the podcast. Also because it was force of habit, but thankfully I'm actually glad that we went on break. He gave me a nice little break for myself, and a little bit less responsibility. Let's just say the end of 2018 was really hectic for me. There was family stuff, there was friend stuff. A lot of it was really fun. A lot of it was really stressful. So thank you so much for putting up with me and this light absence of the show. The show's back. It's gonna be going up week to week, and I don't foresee another break in the schedule probably until May. Those of you who have been following me forever now, May, the end of May, is Fanimicon, and that is the only time of year where I get out of the house. That's not true. It's the only time of year where I go anywhere. My lovely wife and I were actually thinking of going to Crunchyroll Expo, but we had already bought tickets for Fanime, so we'll do Fanime this year. We'll probably do Crunchyroll Expo next year. So I'm just laying it on the table right now. Expect there to be like 2 episodes missing. Around June. I think the last week of May and the first week of June. I don't think I'm going to have time to wrap up an episode. But hey, I'm just doing the housekeeping. I know we all want to get to the exciting bits. Hey Max, did you finish reading The Catcher in the Rye? I did finish it. One of my goals for 2019, did you like the pivot? See, that's what we call the pivot. You asked me a question, here is a completely unrelated answer. One of my goals for 2019 is that I want to read a whole mess of books. I have a to-be read pile that is way too big. It is embarrassingly big. And for the first quarter of 2019, I want to see how much of it I can tackle. There is fiction, there is nonfiction, there's audiobooks in there, there's Japanese light novels, there's a bunch of Stephen King novels, there's a bunch of stuff in there that I gotta read. So I finished 2018 by finishing The Catcher in the Rye. And my plan, I think, I'm probably going to revive my Goodreads page and just post reviews for everything. A part of me doesn't want to, because a bunch of the books that I've been reading I really have not enjoyed. The book I'm reading right now is really not enjoyable, but I have to finish it because the whole point here is so that I can get these books off my bookshelf. So a part of me really doesn't like the idea of having a Goodreads page that is half of it is just dunking other writers. That's not true. I don't dunk. I'm really short. I'm like 5'7". I'm not dunking anybody. So I don't know how I'm gonna tackle that. I may only post the positive reviews. That doesn't seem fair. But anyhow. What about The Catcher in the Rye? I'm sure somebody out there wants my opinion. I put down the book literally a page before the story actually picked up. Who would have known it takes 170 pages for the story to actually get interesting? As soon as Holden's sister jumps in, I'm like, wow, I actually really care about this story way more. I'm not going to have a huge, big review because I know that I can do that. The 2 comments that I have, and I have them on my notes, the 2 comments that I want to make regarding The Catcher in the Rye. 1, J.D. Salinger. Kind of reaching for a title? I don't know. My wife loves the title, and she loves the little image of The Catcher in the Rye, and I found it to be really cool. As a title, it just doesn't get referenced ever again. It's just The Catcher in the Rye. I don't know. It felt really throwaway for me. It's cool, I'll give you that. But I was just like, I don't know. I guess I was expecting it to be more. I guess it's because I really love titles, and I like when a title comes back in the story and it kind of weaves in through that. You know, much more meaningful than just, one particular scene. And pretty much the rest of my thoughts that I had before maintained and stayed in place. I can see why teenagers hated reading this book. I don't think I hated reading this book. I actually kind of enjoyed the narration, especially because I didn't know what I was expecting, so just to hear this one particular teenager ramble for 230 pages was completely fine in my book. But I can completely understand how a teenager tasked with reading this book would have most likely hated reading it. If anything, because it takes 170 pages for the sister to come in, who is really the most fun character in the whole story. And I do appreciate the perspective that she brings into this story. It's almost as though the instant there is a younger more foolish person than Holden realizes, wait, hold on. Time for introspection. And that's nice. The book ends on a very nice little sweet moment. I don't know if I loved the book. I want to post reviews of the books I've been reading, but I hate giving star ratings. Mostly because I don't think a number can express a complex opinion. Especially from a writer to another writer, you know? Like what? Would I give it 3 stars? I don't know. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Alright. I'm back. I was a little stiff at the beginning, just getting used to the flow again. Now, what about the rest of my goals for 2019? Well, this kind of weaves back into what I was saying, because books as just BOOKS is like the big statement for me this year. I want to get a bunch of books out. I want to read a bunch of books, way more than I did last year. And I just want to get back to having books out. It is lovely that a bunch of you have reached out to me, that you went back to read my old work. I am touched, and I hope that you had a lovely time reading those books. That being said, I wrote those like 5 years ago, so don't hold me. That's the problem. This is what some writers... I'm not pointing the finger. I'm just saying some other writers can't stand that. And I don't hate it. I just understand that's the case, and I'm going to get more books out AS the heck P. That's the plan. Read books. Write books. I am currently in the process of continuing the revision process on a novel that I worked on last year, as well as writing a new one. I've been juggling writing and editing, not so much at the same time as though they are 2 projects that I'm juggling, but rather just 2 tracks in my schedule. I do a little bit of writing in the morning, and a little bit of editing in the afternoon. And it's been fun. I know that the last time we talked, I actually didn't have much to say about my writing, but... And it's funny because, like, the instant that I stopped, the podcasts, I forget what I was talking about on episode 26 and 27, I got back into writing. I'm back in there. I'm back in the flow. I'm writing by hand just to, help my brain, to kind of cut my losses, because I would love to be typing, but my anxiety just doesn't let me. And honestly, this is the thing, like, I don't want to say I've done the math, but it's come to the point where, like, I have the math of how much I write by hand and how much I type with my anxiety, and it really is just about the same. I know someone out there is going to say, but Max, you're going to end up typing all this again. Isn't that going to take more time? Yeah, but it gets books done. And at the end of the day, that getting books done at a slightly lower pace is better than not getting books done at all. As for what I'm writing about, I don't want to tell you. It's a fun story. It's the thing where, like, the instant I found the narrator's voice, how can I describe this? It felt good. It felt fun. I almost feel as though, not so much that I'm catching the words, but the words are slipping by me. I'm writing very fast with my pen. Some of the words look like squiggles, but that's fine. I know how to read my own chicken scratch. But it almost feels as though I can't capture the words fast enough, and that has been great. You may be wondering, Max, do you have any advice about starting a new habit? Maybe picking up daily writing, because it appears that you are back to daily writing, Max. And this is funny, okay? Here you go. If anyone out there wants to believe that I am super cool and amazing and I never make mistakes, stop believing that right now. I'm a human being and I make mistakes. But what I want to say is that if you remember at the beginning of this podcast, I stopped doing daily writing because I took it, me being who I am, went a little bit too hard on it. And I remember one of the viewers on YouTube posted a comment, and I forget your name. I know your icon though. I know it by memory. You post comments every once in a while, and I really appreciate it. But you were like, you said, "Oh yeah, I like daily writing. I just don't write on my days off." And me, Me being the very smart and intelligent person that I am, I kind of like did this double take. And I was like, wait, oh my god, what if I go back to daily writing? But I don't write on my days off. So, all I'm saying is that I'm the smartest person in the world, and I came up with that all on my own. I was not spurred by another person's piece of advice or another person's comment on my YouTube videos. Absolutely not. I came up with this on my own. So yeah, daily writing. It's actually not been like super daily writing because I'm recording this in the first week of January. And, you know, there's been things going on. I've been really busy. Apparently running in the rain. But, you know, what's been helping is being able to just sit down and get the words done. And you may be wondering, Max, how can I do this? Whether it is writing or something else. How can I build a new habit for 2019? That, after the break. I say that like I'm about to jump into an ad read. Like, this week's episode is brought to you by Chucklefish. Check out Stardew Valley on the Switch. It will take all of your time. I'm not actually sponsored by Chucklefish or Concerned Ape or anyone related to Stardew Valley. That's just a really good game. It's very wholesome. It will heal your soul. Anyhow. What was the point of this segment, Max? Yes, shoutouts! Hi there! I want to take a second to give a shout out to some of my most generous patrons. If you would like to get some cool perks and learn more about how you can support me through Patreon, check out patreon.com/amkaren. And you can sound like one of these or you can have me butcher your name like one of these lovely people. Atalac. Atalac has a DeviantArt page. You can find out more about their writing and their art over at deviantart.com/AHTILAK. Hero Song. Hero Song is writing LGBT plus positive novels. You can find them over at smashwords.com. Just do a quick search for Hero Song. Alisa Dudley. Amelia. Angela. Brenda. Kristen Lofton. Gilbert Gaudreau. Irina Phoenix. Lacey. Lishadra. Nicola. Pat Eichson. Polly Craftool. Soulmuse. And Synexia. Let's move over to viewer questions. The first question of the day comes from a dear viewer just like you. I actually had this one sent to my email. The email is omakasepodcast@gmail.com, by the way. And it's all about new habits. 2019. The beginning of a new year marks a great chance to try something new, to try again, but ultimately to do something. To attempt a new habit, to learn something new, or to get back to writing. This wasn't the only question I got on the subject, but I figured this is the first episode of 2019. We have to begin here. And I will take it just as simply as the way that writerly friend phrased it. Do I have any tips for beginning and keeping a new habit? Regardless of whether it is writing, editing that novel you wrote, learning a new language, working on yourself, whatever it is, I looked back. I looked through my notes. I keep track of everything. I look back through my notes, and I reviewed what worked for me and what didn't work for me. This is slightly unrelated. Whenever I am not writing diary entries, I do feel that my productivity kind of goes down a little bit. I am a huge fan of journaling. It is what I do in the morning. As soon as I got my coffee, I sit down at the table, and I just do a quick entry. If not to remember what happened yesterday, and to write down any particularly good memories that I had, to cherish the moments, to remind ourselves that life isn't all work. And then there are sweet moments in the midst of living, and that's really what life is all about. The ones that matter the most. Those little sweet moments. Journaling helps with that. This is not the first step, by the way. I realized that I should just state it outwards. One of the things that you always miss when, following other people's tips is that you don't see the stuff they tried and they didn't like. Or the stuff that they do behind the scenes, the stuff that they do that wasn't immediately related to their new habits or to the way that they, pursued their art. And, I was thinking of my routine and I realized, that I do journaling. I don't, do it every single day. I like to not do entries on my days off, just to give myself that little mental freedom to just relax on my day off. But I like to do journaling and doing diary entries. If anything, just because it helps me clear my mind before I get to work. It gives me a chance to just kind of write out, to do a mental sketch of the stuff I want to get done that day. It helps me clear through my thoughts, remind myself of tasks that I have been putting away or stuff that I should really keep in mind moving forward with the rest of the day. Again, this is not one of the tips, but I'm just kind of putting it out there just for anyone who's like, I just want to sort my thoughts at the beginning of the morning. I want to, clear out what I've been thinking about so that I can just move forward with the rest of the day. I recommend just doing diary entries. I do them by hand, mostly because I really love the tactile feeling, and because it helps with a couple of the points I'm going to be bringing up. What are my tips for beginning a new habit? I look through all my notes. I open up my journal, my /journal/diary, and I look through the things, the key elements that truly help me, and I can think of 3. There's a bunch of small stuffs, but really, if I want you to take 3 things with you, it's these 3. The first and foremost, and the one that it helps to have a journal or a bullet journal or some sort of physical device or, digital device, some sort of method of keeping track of what you do. Keeping track. Not just jumping into a goal, a new idea, and just kind of, I don't want to say winging it, but winging it. Just doing it without any foresight, without any planning or preparation. Keeping track of things helps. It reminds you of where you want to go, where you are right now, and it reminds you of where you have been before. Especially with something like writing a long novel or learning a new language, both of which I'm doing at this very moment, it can feel as though you're not moving forward at all. You're writing every day or you're studying a language every single day, and it feels as though there's no end in sight. Keeping track of things helps. You can look back on the pages of entries, on the notes you've made. If you're learning a language, as with anything else, it helps to just write down whatever you've learned that is new. I like to have a little side page of just notes on the novel. This person looks like this. Cross it out. No, they look this way. These are their abilities. Stuff like that. Helps you remember that this is just the most ancient trick ever that, humans have learned from the dawn of writing stuff down. Writing stuff down helps you remember. Hence, to maintain a habit, you must remember the habit. Thus, keeping track of it. The other point that I have, and this is more of a routine thing, depending on your schedule, this may not be something you can do, but I recommend whenever you want to pursue this habit, to pursue it at the same time every day. It's called a habit. It's something you do regularly. Whether it is every other day or every night or every week, this is the time for that. It doesn't only help to have that time mentally locked. It's sorry, these 2 hours at night are just for me and for studying or for writing. But it also helps other people realize that. And I guess maybe this is a very max thing, but I am very consistent with my schedule, almost to a fault, some may say. So it comes to the point where even the most forgetful people in my life, extended relatives, know it's Thursday, can't bother Max on Thursdays because Max spends Thursday recording all day with their wife. Working on that habit at the same time doesn't only help with consistency, but it also lets people around you know. And you know what helps keeping a habit? Telling people about it. Hey, you got a Twitter? You got a Facebook page? You got some sort of blog? Tell people about what you're doing. Tell people about the habit you're working on. Just make a post. Just tell them, hey, I learned these new words today. Or, hey, I wrote these many pages. Or just say, I wrote today! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Toss some emoji in there. The 3 books piled up together, that's a good emoji. The writing hand emoji, that's a good one. A couple sparkle emoji, that's the good stuff. I'm not even being sarcastic. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you know. There's a very keen, beautiful art to the emoji. But just letting people know. Just let people know that you did something. And in a way, it makes you accountable. I mean, no one's gonna yell at you if you miss your habit one night or one week. But it helps to know this is how the process goes. I keep track of what I do. I do it at the same time every day or whenever I sit down to do it. And I let people know. Or there's some sort of end product that comes from it. And to me, in my experience, like literally looking over my diary entries, I know they're not, world-shattering, mind-bending tips. So I want to give you one that really is mind-bending. You're not a machine. You're not a robot. It's probably going to take longer than you think to write that novel. It's going to be harder to learn that language than you think it is going to be. It's going to be way more challenging to make that game. It takes time. It takes effort. You got both. You can do this. Just don't be hard on yourself needlessly. And I know someone out there is like, you have to put pressure on yourself, otherwise you're never gonna amount to anything. And I don't know if I absolutely agree with that. Mostly because we as human beings are already so good at being hard on ourselves, so additional pressure from within I don't particularly feel is any more meaningful. If you're listening to a podcast about writing advice, I assume you're level-headed enough to reach out to other people for advice. And you're probably way too hard on yourself as it is. So don't be needlessly hard on yourself. If you miss a day, you miss a day. If you get sick, guess what? You're not allowed to write when you're sick. That's the rule. You didn't get the newsletter? You have to update your address on the online form. You are not allowed to write or to work on any project when you're sick. That's the rule. And now that you heard it, now you know it's the rule. That's the way things are. I don't make the rules. What, Max? Didn't you just make up that rule? Absolutely not. These... I'm getting lost in this bit. These are the rules of life. When you're sick, you rest and nothing else. Watch some YouTube videos. Play some video games. Relax. Drink lots of liquids. Take care of yourself. Take it from me. I'm terrible at taking care of myself. But I remember. I want to get back to writing. And if I continue to be hard on myself, I'm not going to get there any faster. So yeah, take care of yourself. If you got to take a day off, you got to take a day off. If you miss a day, you miss a day. What matters is not to have a perfect record. Take it from this crazy right here. What really matters is to continue to do the thing that is your goal. Okay? Okay. And now, for the second question of the day. A question that not one person in particularly asked, but a bunch of people kind of echoed in together. Kind of, when all of their questions arrived, there was a thread connecting them all. It's a new year. It's 2019. A chance to be better. A chance to work on that goal. And if that goal happens to be writing a novel, the first step is, how do you find ideas for a novel? Now, if you've been doing this for a little while, that's not particularly an issue. The more that you write stories, the easier it is to find story ideas in the wild. Sometimes you have too many, and you have to develop a podcast just for the sake of giving them away. That's not true. This podcast is a combination of all the content I used to make on YouTube, and I really love making this podcast. I hope you're enjoying it as well. But how do you find story ideas? I got a lot of questions about world building and developing meaningful arcs, and while I do want to tackle those questions in full, what I want to do first is just get to the basic core of the question. How do you find ideas? How do you develop ideas? It's the new year. I want to get started with writing. How do I begin? And the answer is relatively simple. I want to inspire you, because I know this is gonna be controversial. It's gotta be. I'm giving you advice. Here comes Max with the radical advice. Even if you have an amazingly cool and interesting world, even if it's been that fantasy setting you've been working on since you were a teenager, and I'm not throwing shade. Even if you have that setting, and it is cool and it is amazing and you want to write it, and that's good. Excitement is good for creating stories. Some might argue is the only thing that finishes stories. I want to inspire you to find someone in this world that you want to write about. A character. A single person. And make the story about them. Their story, their struggle. You know me. I'm a huge radical with my crazy writing advice ideas, and I've always been way more personally interested in personal stories. Stories about a person or a group of people. But I always prefer them to be a person. A real person. The kind of story where you can just really get to know them. Get to see their point of view. And you don't have to write a story like that. But I find that it helps to begin first, not with world building, though if you have a world, you should probably use it. If you're a nerd like me and you've played a lot of role-playing games, you have probably, I'm going to say, about at least 5 million character concepts. And at least a couple worlds that you have made. You can use those. Just start. Find a character in this setting, whether it's a fantastical setting or an everyday setting. Again, you don't have to have the story be entirely about this person. The reason why I like to begin with a single person is because it grounds the story. It sets it in a place and time. And anyone who's been writing a story for a long while can tell you the stories take a long time to write, and no matter how much we want to believe that entire years pass in between the pages of a novel, it actually really is less time. Time is compressed inside of a novel. So if you want to write a story about the entire dynasty of this fantasy kingdom, I can assure you, it's going to take a long while. And that's not inherently a bad thing. But again, if you're starting with writing, and you want to write this novel, I'm not saying start small because small stories are easier to write. I'm saying start small because stories always go out of our control. They always change, they always evolve. At least for me, that has been the experience. I have never written a story where everything happened exactly how I thought it would. And someone out there is yelling, but wasn't Justine's blood really close? It was really close. But that was not what I had planned the story to be. That's the way things are. I really like doing this exercise, especially for a story in which this character that I'm finding is not actually the main character, but rather the antagonist. It gives you a segment of the world, because you can have an enormous fantasy world, but, and don't take this the wrong way, I'm not being mean, it almost doesn't matter how huge the world is if you're not going to go to every corner of it. If this story about this character is going to be in this one particular city, you can focus on fleshing out the city, on understanding just how many levels there are to this place, the layers to the reality that these characters live in. And I like this exercise for making the antagonist first, because you get to see them as a human being, you get to see their downfall. You get to see how they end up in the position of an antagonist. Not inherently an evil person, because the world isn't so black and white. And even now I'm just having fun just thinking about this. I really love doing this. And I'm going to be entirely honest with you. The project that I was working on at the end of 2018, the project that I kept stumbling on, before I found this new story, I honestly feel that the problem was that I didn't have a grounded main character, or that I didn't begin the story with one person. I had a bunch of actors. Not to say that they weren't characters, but I had a bunch of actresses and members who were pushing the plot together. And I feel like I started very aimlessly. I might have also been hurrying along. If you're interested in starting a new novel, or beginning your writing journey, I feel like there's no better advice I can give you if you're a new writer to just begin with a single character. Not because it's easy, trust me. The act of writing is the hardest part about writing. But with less elements in the story, with less parameters, the story won't absolutely explode in your hands. Though it probably can. Probably will. That's just the writing process. I had a slightly funny comment I got. If you're wondering what's the video that gets the most comments on YouTube, it is my guide to how to plan a novel, which you can check out if you're interested in a more fleshed out version of what I just said right now. I got a comment from someone who were saying that, like, write as you go, that's how I ended up with all of my really badly written novels, where it feels like everything's happening randomly. And I read that comment and I was working. So I was like, okay. Or it might have been on my day off, I don't know. But I was like, I wanted to reply. I usually don't reply to comments, mostly because I get a lot of really mean comments on YouTube. And that's just a waste of time. But I wanted to tell that person, I might still post the comment, that, like, that's what revision is for. You write the story, you write it first, and then you revise it, make sure that everything loops back in itself, that everything makes sense. That's part of the job. That's what you do. So, I also don't want to give you the impression that I don't have loose ends in my first drafts. Of course I do. There's a couple loose ends on the story I'm writing right now. But I know that I will take care of it when revision comes. Okay? And I know that I already said this in the previous point, but don't be too hard on yourself. And, you know, once you feel that you have enough to imagine the beginning of the story, just start writing. I know, I'm describing the most impossible thing in the world, because writing is hard and it is scary. But it's gotta start sometime. And take it from me, okay? As of now, I have the worst batting record when it comes to the first chapter of a story. At this point, it's basically a situation of no matter what I do on the first draft, that first chapter is gonna get entirely cut, no matter what story I'm writing. So take this as a great reminder that your first draft is not set in stone. It is a version of your story that you will edit and improve on, and you will most likely change most of the first chapter. And that helps. I can't tell you how many times I've been stuck in a line, and then I remind myself, write what you think this character is saying. I usually get really stuck in dialogue, and I'm like, just write what you think they're saying. Even if it sounds dumb, even if you think it sounds out of character, just have it on the page. Why? Because you can change that later. Take it from someone who revised every line of dialogue by a character in their previous novel. So, don't feel too bad. You're not a bad writer. You're doing it right. You write, you revise. That's the way that it goes. All right. That's it for the questions for today. If you have a question you would like me to answer, tweet at me. Leave a comment on YouTube on the brand new, sparkly and shiny videos. Or email me at omakasepodcast@gmail.com. And so, we have arrived at the prompt. Every week, I bring to you a weird exercise or story idea, almost like a message in a bottle. And it's up to you what you want to do with it. If you do happen to make something from one of my ideas, feel free to let me know. I may want to read it. I may want to retweet it, or reblog it. Today, we're going to be examining a story idea that I had a while back. I actually wrote a bunch of this. Did I say 20 or 50 pages? I forget. I wrote a bunch of it. And it wasn't that the story didn't pan out as I expected. It was actually more of a life problem, a life change. It was the end of the year. I think it was. And I was really busy with stuff. Just like I was busy this last December. I said that I got back to daily writing, but let me just tell you, I wasn't writing every day on the dot. Mostly because life was very hectic for me in December. So I want you to take that essence, the hecticness, as we examine the room at the end of the world. I'm going to walk you through the details of the story. The reason why I wrote so much of this, and the reason why I really liked it, is because this story is a question. It is a riddle, and I do not know if it possesses an answer. It is like an escape room game, except there is no exit. At least not one that I can think of. I want you to imagine a room. Just by the sheer virtue of you imagining this on your own, your version of the story is going to look dramatically different. And that's fun. That's what I like. I want you to imagine a room. If it is big or small, that is up to you. In this room, there is a young person. In my story, they were a young woman. But they can be whatever you want them to be. A young person finds themselves in this room. The features of this room are up to you. In my version of the room, I imagined it dark, devoid of many light sources. Tile floor, cold, barren walls, almost oppressive in its appearance. In one side of the rectangular room, there is what appears to be a control console. To the eyes of our protagonist, it looks like a bunch of computers tied together. There are several screens, but no input method. There is no mouse. There is no keyboard. On the screens of this device, there is video playing. The little icon on the upper right corner indicates that it is live footage. At times, the point of view displayed by the camera changes. This appears to be entirely at random. Sometimes you see familiar places, sometimes you do not. Sometimes they are foreign nations, sometimes they are empty streets. In the beginning of this bizarre story, our protagonist finds themselves in this place, just as the screens of that control console display the New Year countdown. The video shows footage of New York, of people packed on the streets, celebrating, drinking. At times, the camera cuts to people warmly embracing each other. Quick kisses and long ones. Just as that ball in the sky begins to descend, as the countdown goes from double digits to single ones, as we slowly near the 0 in the countdown, a second, larger ball of light begins to fall from the sky. Before the countdown can even hit 0, suddenly the display flickers. There is this tangible shockwave. Our protagonist is so shaken by the force. They're sent down to the floor. They hit their head. They close their eyes. And when they come to, they sit up and find before themselves the same screens, the same video feedback that they saw, the same images of nations that they know, of places that they're familiar with, of empty streets, except the date on the corner of those displays is different. It is not the first of a new year, but the first of the year that had just passed. If someone has reset the clock back to its first position, or if the displays themselves are lying to our protagonist, they do not know. This is the introduction to the room at the end of the world. A young person, though they need not be young, they could be older, they could be ancient. At one point they will end up being ancient. Because the twist, the way in which I wanted to show the story, it was to have a full cycle. Not a day-to-day entry, but to show that our character is stuck here in this room, and they're forced to witness again the end of the world. Not starting 10 seconds before the flash. Not an hour, not a day, not a month, but at the beginning of the year. January 1st. The way I imagined the story moving on was to actually show our character's point of view through one year end and the next. Don't mind the chinchillas in the background. I wanted not do daily entries because the way the story would take forever, but I wanted it to be a full cycle, a full 1 year, and our character finds themselves again at the countdown, and they hope for it to be different, and they hope for it to take them somewhere else, and they hope for it to be something other than what they know, and it's not. The countdown begins. The New Year's disco ball in the sky is almost about to touch the base, to go 0, and then the other ball of light, the flash of white, the shaking force, and then January the 1st again. There are a few immediate questions, and these are some that you're going to have to figure out how you want to twist. I like the idea of this being more of a bunker-like situation, a bunker-like place that would explain why our character has access to food and other facilities. I also can see not having that. I kind of like not having that. I kind of like not tackling that question. Not overtly tackling the question. Have that be another of the mysteries. Why does our character need not eat and drink? Do they need to sleep? Do they age? And we're about to get to the real strangeness here. I can't tell you how I got to this story, or to this particular element in the story. But after several cycles, our main character finds out, or wakes up on the floor of that place, and finds that there's someone else. The way that I imagined it, I imagined a human-sized birdcage, and inside of it, a stranger. I imagined this stranger spending a whole year asleep, and I imagined our protagonist talking to them, prodding them, being aware that they were alive or they were breathing, but no reaction ever came from them. And it is not until an action is taken or time transpires that the stranger stirs from their slumber. And I think this right here is good enough. How would you tackle this scenario? The young person, the person who finds themselves in this bizarre room, finds themselves before these screens that show the end of the world again and again and again. Their torture lasts an entire year, again and again. In time, they may have a visitor. They may not linger inside of a human-sized birdcage. Maybe they do. Who are they? What do they mean? And more importantly, the bigger questions. Just who is our protagonist? Why have they been put in this place? And how do they get out? Yeah. That's a good feeling. That's a weird story. That's the good stuff. Even now, I there were a bunch of other ideas that I had, but I have to leave it to you at some point. I don't want to spend, all day here just going through details, character notes, and all that stuff. Okay, I'll give you one more. In my notes, I really liked the idea of the protagonist and the person in the cage looking really similar, but the person in the cage looked like an older relative of the protagonist. As to what that means and why it's that way, I'll leave that up to you. But the thing is this, I really liked writing the story idea, but life happened and stuffs. And I don't have time to get back to it. I really don't. I'm like 5 books deep on a bunch of other projects. And I think I would rather give it to you than let it linger in blankness. I may tackle it someday. Maybe, maybe not. But for now, I want to thank you for tagging along. Thank you for spending a little bit of your... It's the chinchillas. They are playing with their little toys. The chinchillas were napping through most of this video. It wasn't until I started doing the prompt that they were like, ooh, time to be awake. But hey, if you're new, I have 2 chinchillas and a gray cat. But yeah, thank you for tagging along. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me. And I hope that between now and the next time we meet, that you work on your New Year's habits. And maybe get some writing done. If you want to step out, go on with the rest of your wonderful day. Feel free to do so. Now we're gonna jump into a special segment, the shoutouts. The rules are simple. I give a shout out to everyone who buys me a coffee and to every single person pledging $1 and up on my Patreon page, patreon.com/mkaren. Silliness will ensue. It is likely that I will say something really silly along the way. It's the end of the video. Most of you are already going off to your merry way, to your wonderful writing adventures. The ones of you staying, welcome. Excuse me? Don't mind my timer going off. The rest of you, welcome to the end of the video club. It is time to begin. I actually want to do the coffee shoutouts first, mostly because I have a bit. Okay. First off, a day ago, like just in time, I received a donation. Someone bought me a coffee. Lovely Mark Maruska, treating me to a cup of coffee. Thank you very much. With the comment, yay. Yeah. Thank you for the donation, Mark. Also, I want to give a shout out to 3 different anonymous donators who appear in here as somebody. So I want to give a shout out to, somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I don't know the lyrics of that song. I also want to give a shout out to somebody told me that you had a boyfriend who looked like a girlfriend. Okay, there you go. And I want to give a shout out to somebody to love. Okay, I can't hit. No one can hit Freddie Mercury's notes. Okay, listen. There you go. If you're ever like Max, wow, you should quit doing books and start a band. And my reply to that is, who are you? Why must you make fun of me and my lack of lyrical abilities? Anyhow, thank you, 3 individual somebodies. Let's move over to the rest of the shoutouts. Every single lovely person on Patreon: Athalak, Alistair Baywood, Alex Cast. That is Alex, A-L-I-X. That's such a cool name. Elisa Dudley, Amanda Stevens, Amelia, Angela, Aniexo Hoshi, Biting the Sun, Blarg, Brenda, C.E. Richards, Caitlin, and the other Caitlin, Kathy Lindsay, Christiane, Kristen Dennis, Kristen Lofton, Clem Pastor. New patron. Connor. Their name is not Connor. I'm just trying to get the right pronunciation on Connor. That joke is for... Really, it's for everyone in the gaming Discord. But mostly for Solar. That joke is just to make Solar just hate me even more than they already do. Erasos! Hi, I'm Connor. I am pledging to your Patreon page. Jeffrey Raby. Okay, Connor, I didn't want to make your shout out a joke, but it enabled the joke. And isn't that what life's all about? Sometimes I just drop that. I'm like, hey, yeah, that's right, I cut in line, but isn't that what life's all about? You should try it. I did not cut in line. I'm lawful neutral. Are you crazy? Am I lawful neutral? I hate just the neutral categories. I might as well be lawful good if I have to be lawful. Definitely not lawful chaotic. That's silly. Joffrey Raby, Gilbert Gaudreau, Hero Song, Irina Phoenix, Janosch Heibutsky, J. Tana Kirkwood, Jeffrey James Williams, Jay Sawicki, Juan Nunes, K.M. Anderson, Kameshwar Rao Shaluri, Kaylee, Kiel, Lacey, Lier Killo, Lishadra. No, that wasn't right. Lishadra, Mary Foster Smith, Nicola, Nicole Grissom, Nicolay, Noam Sahar, Novels and Tomes, Pablo, Pat Eichson, Polly Craftool, Raquel Fernandez, Rhiannon August, Roa, Shimmer Tales, the girls are making noise in the background, Skydy White, Soul Muse, Sylvia Leitilla, Synexia, and wait for it, Wendy Christopher. I always gotta be a little bit extra for Wendy. Wendy's been pledging for 8 months. That's cool. That's so cool. You are all very cool people, and I really appreciate your support. It feels good to be back. I haven't recorded one of these in a little bit, and taking a break was good. I hope I didn't keep you waiting for very long. But with that being said, 2019's here. I recorded a podcast, and isn't that what life's all about? Okay, I am falling a victim to my own bit. What I want to say is that a new year... If December sucks because you feel the pressure of a whole year, let's take this as a great chance. It's January, we're here in the new year. And I'm not saying a brand new you, but work on the things you want to work on. Chase the goals you want to chase. Make this year, make this time that you have about what you want it to be. Stay strong. Take care. And remember, today is a good day to write.